Hello beautiful soulmate, you're highly welcome back to this YouTube channel. It's Whitney IY here, and if this is your first time here, you're highly welcome. Please do what to hit the subscribe button and also click on the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. Now in this video we'll be making this beautiful Victorian corset that has this conical shape at the side. So if this is something you are willing to learn, if this is something you are interested in, then do well and keep watching, and also never touch the dial and make sure you practice, because you know what, like I would always say, practice makes perfect. Please note that this is the drafting video for this Victorian corset. So in case you want to watch the drafting video, then the link will be on the comment section. It will be pinned on the comment section or on the description box. Also, if you already know how to draft a Victorian corset, then you're welcome to join us. So this video is just solely for putting together of the Victorian corset, sewing of this Victorian corset. Like I earlier stated, the drafting video is already up on my YouTube channel. So these are the items I'll be making use of. I'll be making use of this Ankara fabric. It's about 2 yards. You can make use of any fabric of your choice. Also, I'm making use of this estee. It's about 3 yards put together. Estee is very important, yes. Also, I'm making use of this plastic boning. I prefer making use of the plastic boning because of how firmer it holds than the regening boning, but you can double the regening boning if you still insist on using it. So right now you can see the front pattern paper is already placed on the fabric and the fabric is on fold, and you can see the piece 1 of the front pattern paper, that's the center front. You can see the way I placed it. There is no allowance here because there will be no opening at the center front. And I left 0.75 inch allowance all round. 0.75 inch allowance all round. So I'll go ahead and bring in my scissors and cut this out like this. So I'll go ahead and cut. So this is it. So make sure you leave 0.75 inch allowance all round. So now that I've cut out this piece, the next thing I would want to do right now is to give the front waist length, the under bust line, the bust point, and the chest point, chest line, little cuts that are not up to 0.25 inch, like very little cuts on each of those points on each piece. This helps with sewing this piece together easily. That way when you're sewing it together, the bust point of the first piece should be on the bust point of the second piece, and so on and so forth. Like it should match, the bust point should match, the under bust point should match, like all of them, they should match together. That way it's easier for you to sew. Moving on to the back bodies, I have placed the fabric on fold and left 0.75 inch sewing allowance all round. Please make sure you cut open your dart line, like I stated on the drafting video. Cut open your dart line on your back pattern to give you a perfect and straight or neat dart line for your Victorian corset back bodies. I had to make my back pattern a whole piece because I'm trying to manage my fabric because of the sleeve I intend to make. So please make sure you cut open the dart on your back pattern and leave 0.75 inch sewing allowance all round. That way you'll be having 2 pieces for your back pattern. Yes, unlike my own that is 1 whole piece, you'll be having 2 pieces for your back pattern. So guys, at this point I've used the pattern to cut out both the fabric and the lining. Yes, I'm using the Ankara as the lining as well. So I'll go ahead now and iron estee to the fabric and to the lining. So I'll be ironing the black estee to the lining part so we can be able to differentiate, and I'll iron the white estee to the main fabric just for the purpose of this tutorial. It does not really matter. For the main fabric, I'll be ironing 2 layers of estee to the main fabric. Then on the lining, I'll iron 1 layer of estee to the lining. Meaning, if I'm going to iron the estee to the main fabric, I'm going to, after ironing the first layer of estee, I'll now iron the second layer of estee to the main fabric, but for the lining is just one layer. So right now I've ironed the hairstay. As you can see, this is the main fabric and this is the lining. This is the main fabric and this is the lining. Like I earlier said, I'll be using the black ST for the lining and the white ST for the main fabric, just for us to differentiate, because I'm using Ankara for both the lining and the fabric. I hope you understand. So this, to not bring in confusion, is just to make us to understand that okay, any of the fabric with black ST is the lining. So this is the main fabric. As you can see, it's time to join this piece together. So you go ahead and arrange it like this and join this piece 2 to the piece 1 like this. Both sides of the piece 2 should be joined to the piece 1 like this. So I'll just use my pin to hold it. So when joining it, make sure your bust point is matching. The bust point of piece 2 is matching the bust point of piece 1. The under bust line of piece 2 is matching the under bust line of piece 1. Then you also bring in the piece 3 like this, as you can see, and you go ahead and flip it over. Always make sure the right side are both facing each other. Then you go ahead and join it on the wrong side like this. So I'll go ahead and do that and I'll come back and show you. So join it with the 0.75 inch sewing allowance. So I'll go ahead and do that and I'll come back and show you the outcome. I hope you understand. So guys, this is it guys. I've joined all the pieces together using the 0.75 inch allowance and making sure that the bust points are aligning with each other. The under bust line matches with each other. The waistline matches with each other. That way it was very easy for me to sew. So right now this is the back pattern. So this is the lining for the back pattern, which obviously has the black ST, and this is the main fabric for the back pattern. So if you cut open your dart line, then you should be having 2 pieces. So at this point you go ahead and join your dart lines using the 0.75 inch allowance. But because I didn't cut open my back pattern, I have to follow this process to mark out where my dart will be on my main fabric, and then I'll go ahead and close it up. But this is going to give me a bent dart line for the back pattern, and it's not attractive at all. It's not, it does not make it look good. So the more reason I'm advising you to cut open your dart line for your back pattern and leave 0.75 each, and then go ahead and close it up at this point using the 0.75 inch. So after closing up the dart lines for your back pattern, you go ahead and bring them in and place it like this, making sure the right side of your back pattern is on the right side of your front pattern, and close up the side using 0.75. So whatever you're doing for the main fabric, make sure you also do it for the same process, the exact same process for the lining as well. So I'll go ahead and close up the side using 0.75 inch. So guys, this is it. I've closed up the sides of the main fabric using the 0.75 inch and I've ironed, so you can see the conical shape it's giving. So moving on, the next step is to go ahead and sew the bony channels on the main fabric, and to do that it's very easy. Just stitch down 0.25 inch at the edge of all the dart allowance, both on your front pattern and on your back pattern. Stitch 0.25 on the edge on all your dart allowance on both sides. That way you're going to have boning on both sides of the dart allowance. You have boning on both sides, so go ahead and do that. And after stitching down 0.25, you should have about 0.5 inch space to insert the boning. That is, after stitching it down, you insert the boning like this on both sides of each dart allowance. I hope you understand. So guys, I won't be doing this particular process because I like trying something new. So I'll also show you the something new I did and if it's okay to do it or not. So for me, I'm going to put the bony channels on the lining, and I'll be using the bias to create this bony channel. There are different methods in creating a bony channel, but for Victorian corset, ideally it's just you sewing down 0.25 inch of your dart allowance edges and then inserting your boning on your main fabric. But right now I've done that over and over, and I just want to try out this method and see how well it goes. And if it's okay, I'll tell you, and if it's not, I'll tell you to stick to the previous way of just doing your normal Victorian corset. So this is how I'm going to stitch down the my bunny channel. I'll go ahead and stitch down the edges of my bias like this on the dart lines, and I'll just stitch them down. So also make sure you close the 0.25 inch on your back pattern as well, on the dart allowance of your back pattern as well, to insert your boning as well. So guys, I'll go ahead and do this, and I'll come back and show you. So this is it. As you can see, I have sewn in the bias, and this wrong side is looking good. So I'll flip it over to the right side of the lining. This is how it looks. But then I'm not liking the vibe it's giving, because it's not giving me neat vibe. So I'll just prefer you stick to, you know, sewing down the 0.25 inch of your dart allowance on your main fabric and inserting your boning on both sides. So guys, right now go ahead and bring in the main fabric and place it on the lining, making sure that the right sides are facing each other like this. And I'll go ahead and close this overbust, the upper part, and I'll make sure they matches with each other, more of like the sides matches, and I'll close up this upper part using 0.75 inch allowance. So guys, this is it. I have stitched up the upper part, as you can see, and make sure you iron after every stitch. So right now it's time to insert the boning, and in doing so, you can see the way this boning is curved. So that is how you're going to insert it. So you're going to have this curved shape after inserting your boning. You understand? So even if you're doing the method I recommend, that is you sewing down 0.25 inch of both that allowance on your main fabric, make sure your boning is bent like this. And before inserting your boning, you have to prep the tip of your boning to make it comfortable for whoever is putting on the corset, so it doesn't poke whoever is putting on the corset. So go ahead and shaping it like this. Give it a little curve at the tip. You can do this with either your candle or with either your scissors or your lighter. Yes, just a little to get that curve. And then you cut a piece from your paper tape and, you know, fold it like this, just to cover up the tip to avoid it poking whoever is putting on the corset. And go ahead and place the boning inside the boning channels on your main fabric. Yes, I do not recommend this particular type of boning channels for your Victorian corset because it doesn't give a neat look. So I will advise you stick to the previous method of sewing down 0.25 inch of your dart edges on both sides on your main fabric. It gives a neater finishing. So in cutting the boning after inserting, make sure it's 1 inch shorter than the fabric, because you need your allowance for closing the hem. And please be very careful so you don't cut into the fabric like I did. Please be very careful to avoid such a mistake. And make sure you also prep the tip of your boning as well like this. So make sure it's 1 inch shorter than the fabric. So you can see this curve it's given. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for all the boning channels. So go ahead and do the same thing for all your boning channels, including the boning channels on your back pattern. Make sure you do it on both sides of all the boning of all the dart lines. So guys, this is the curve shape is given. You can see the way it's curved. So this was what I was talking about. So now it's time to go ahead and close the hem. So there are two methods in closing the hem of your Victorian corset. You can use your bias to turn the hem of your Victorian corset. That is the most easiest way, and it also gives a very neat finishing. But before you close the hem, make sure you go ahead and close up the center back using 0.75 inch sewing allowance. And you're going to stitch down the main fabric and the lining together to get the boning channels for your center back. So I'll show you how that is done. But before now, I'm going to show how this other method for closing the hem is done. So after closing up the center back, I would leave from this point. I would leave from the center back to the first dart line on the back pattern. I'll leave it open, then I'll go ahead, and from that point I'll go ahead and close up the M using 0.75 inch, and I'll also stop on this other dart line on the other back pattern. So I'll do that and show you guys. So this is what I'm talking about. So you can see where I stopped here. So that is just what I was trying to explain for this other method of closing the M. So you can see where I stopped here. So the reason for leaving these other parts open is because I want to insert boning. I want to sew in a boning channel for, you know, making sure that the center back is firm while after lacing. I hope you understand. So also, to turn this over, I just loosed open the side of the lining to turn this over. So I'll be using aiming gum to, you know, close that up. But then I would advise the bias, using the bias to turn it, because it's you don't need to go through all this process. You understand? All you just have to do is to create the boning channels on your center back, and then you just used your bias to aim the M. You get to turn the M. So that's just it. So now that's this side that I opened on the lining, I'll bring in the aiming gum. This is how I'll place it, like this. So I'll place it like this, and I'll go ahead and, you know, iron it. So that is just it for that. But I feel this method, it's, you know, stressful. So now in creating the boning channels for your center back, this is what I was trying to explain earlier on. You have to measure how wide your boning channel is. So for mine, it is 0.5 inch wide. So as you can see, 0.5 inch wide. So when marking out, I'm going to be marking 0.6 inches wideness, because I want this boning channel to be able to enter comfortably. So I'll just mark 0.6 inch wide. So meaning if your boning is 0.2 inches wide, let me say 0.25 inch wide, then you just mark out 0.375 inch wide. I hope you understand. So I just marked out 0.6 inches wide, and then from the aim you mark 1 inches up, because you don't want the stitch to get to this 1 inch, or that's where you want the stitch to stop. And then you repeat the same thing again from this 0.625 inch. You mark out another 0.625 inch like this again, and you also mark out another 0.625 inch, meaning you'll be having 3 lines, 3 stitches on both sides of the center back. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I will show you what I'm talking about. So this is it. You can see I have 3 stitches. As you can see, 3 stitched lines, 1 2 3, as you can see. So for the dart line, as you can see, it's bent. This is what I was explaining earlier on. That's the way I did my my back pattern. You can see the dart line is bent. So that's what I was trying to explain to you to avoid by cutting your darts open on your back pattern. So right now it's time to insert in the boning. You can see I've already prepped the tip of the boning, and you can see the curved way the boning is curved. So that's how I'm going to put it in. So on this first darts line, that space, you're going to put in the boning on this first part. Then the second part is going to be for eyelets. Then the third part, you also insert your boning as well on the third part. So meaning in between the 2 bonings, there is an eyelet in between. So that's just it. So I'll go ahead and cut out the tip of this boning and also prep it as well. And I'll go ahead and insert the boning on the third stitched space. So this is it. So after placing the boning on the first space, on the third space you place the boning here. Don't place it on the middle. The middle is to be left empty for the eyelets placement. So that is just it. So I'll go ahead and do that and come back and show you how it looks like. So guys, this is how it's looking. You can see the middle is empty, no boning in the middle, in between the 2 bonings. So right now I'll go ahead and use aiming gum to, you know, after folding in 1/2 inch, I'll place aiming gum in between an iron to close up the M after placing in the boning. Now, so mates, this is it. After I've ironed it out, and I have closed the hem of the center back after placing in the boning. So this is how it's looking. It's beautiful, and this is it. So you can see the conical shape, it's beautiful. So if you want the conical shape longer than this or wider than this, you know what to do. Just increase it in length and increase it in size depending on what you're going for, or depending on what you're recreating or what you have in mind. So right now it's time to place in the eyelets in between the bonings, as you can see, and you can see it's looking beautiful. But make sure you stick to sewing the boning channels on your main fabric on both sides of the dart lines. Make sure you do that. It gives a very neater finishing than this method I used for sewing in the boning channels or you get on the lining. So guys, make sure you do that. You can see the conical shape it's given. It's beautiful. So that's just it, guys. So for the eyelets, I'm going to bring in the tools for that now. So for the eyelets, you need your rivet machine and you need your eyelets as well. For your rivet machine, if you don't have a rivet machine, I think I've seen few people make use of the scissors, the hammer. Just do your research and find out how to use those tools as well for placing in your eyelet. But if you have a rivet machine, no problem, you can also go ahead and make use of it. So right now, this is where we're going to be putting the eyelet. So in placing the eyelets, you have to mark half an inch down from the top of your center back like this. As you can see on the space the eyelet is going to be seated, so come down by half an inch like this. And after coming down by half an inch, I'm marking out the first place the eyelet is going to be seated. You can then start marking out 1 inch before the next eyelet placement. You understand? So meaning between each eyelet we have 1 inch space between each eyelet. But before doing the very first eyelet placement, you have to come down by half an inch. Then you start marking out the 1 inch space between each eyelet. So these markings are going to be where the eyelet is going to be seated. So now that I have this, I will repeat the same thing on the other side. But before then, I'm going to show you how you can install the eyelet. So just go ahead and cut out the first shocked out point where the eyelet will be placed. So please be careful when cutting it out with your scissors so you don't have a rough work. If you have your soldering iron, you can make use of your soldering iron to create the opening where the eyelet will be placed. So this is it. So now that I have this, I'll bring in the eyelets. So I'll bring in the eyelets. So for eyelets, we have these two parts for an eyelet. So there's one part that has a protruding end and there's one that is just flat. So you put the protruding end through the main fabric like this, and then you put this part that is flat on the lining like this on top of the protruding end like this, as you can see. Then you bring in your rivet meshing and you go ahead and place in the eyelet dies like this. So there are two parts of an eyelet dies. So you go ahead and screw in this part here, and then this other part of an eyelet dies, you just go ahead and place it here on this other side of the rivet machine. So after placing it well like this, you go ahead and bring in the eyelet. When placing the eyelet on the machine, you're going to place the main fabric like this. You turn the main fabric down, so the main fabric is going to be on the down of the rivet machine. So you see the way I flipped it over like this. So the lining is facing up. Then you go ahead and press down the handle while you've successfully placed the eyelet in between. So this is the eyelet. I've done it. So I thought I filmed when pressing down the rivet machine, but unfortunately I didn't. So for the rose flower, all you have to do is to get a fabric that is 4 inch wide and that is very long, about 64 inches long. Yes, and then you go ahead and stitch it down like this on the right side. You just stitch it down on the right side like this, as you can see, and you bring in your needle and thread, and you just go ahead and start pulling in the needles like this through the part that has been stitched down, as you can see. So you just do it like this till you get to the end of the 64 inches length of this long strip. I hope you understand. So you just keep doing this till you get to the end, and once you do it to the end, the next thing for you to do is you're going to drag your thread like this to create some form of little gathers or ruffles. Then you start turning them over like this. You start turning the strip over like this after stitching it to the end like the way I did, and then you drag it and have those little ruffles. Then you turn it over like this, you form your flower. So that's just how you create your rose flower, fabric rose flower. So this is it. After doing it, you can see I have a beautiful big rose flowers. So I would then cut out the strip, a long strip of fabric, and then stitch these roses to it, and then use it as my sleeve. Although this is not part of the tutorial, but I just have to show you how I did it. So guys, that is it. So if you enjoyed this video, and if this video was helpful to you and you're yet to hit the subscribe button, what are you waiting for? Please hit on the subscribe button. That's your way of supporting this channel. It's your way of supporting me, and thank you. And also, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. So if there is any way that you are confused, don't worry, just drop a question in the comment section and I'll try as much as possible to respond to you. So right now I'm going to show you how to lace up your corset. So when lacing up your corset, take note of the middle of your eyelets. It's very important. So I'm just going to show you. So you bring in your corset, your ribbon that is about 3 or 4 inches long, or even 5 inches long. Then you go ahead and place it like this through each eyelet holes like this, as you can see. So I carefully went ahead to place all the highlights off camera because I need to be careful about it to get a neater job, to get a neat finishing for my eyelet placement. So please just watch how I am placing in the ribbon. Yes, so you place in your ribbon like this, you place it like this, and when you get to the middle of your eyelets, you place it like this. You can see you place it like this. So to get the middle of your eyelets is just somewhere around the waist. So you should be able to tell your waist on your fabric. That is that place where there's a sharp curve. That's the waist. So that is it. You do it like this. So I think I've taught on one of my other video that has to do with an underbust corset, how to also lace a corset. So if you've watched that, then this should not be something new to you. So you go ahead and lace it up like this, and then stitch up the edge like this. Stitch up, tie up the ends like this, and then in lacing it up fully, you're going to please just watch. I don't know how best to explain this with words. So like I earlier stated on my drafting video, there's a corset class ongoing just for corset. So if you're interested, just hit up the my social media handle, just DM or send an email, or send a WhatsApp message solely for the class. Yes, the WhatsApp number is solely for the class. So this is how you lace up your corset. And after putting it on, this is what I have. You can see how beautiful it is, and you can see how beautiful the back is looking. I love it. So it's looking so beautiful, and you can see the style lines at the hem. So you can go for any beautiful style line you have in mind for your hem. Just be creative. The styles you're recreating, people also created them. So still be creative as far as it's beautiful. So that's just it. It's to have a beautiful outcome. That's just it. So I'm loving this particular Victorian corset with a conical shape. It fits all body type, and that is why I am so much in love with it. So guys, see you on my next video. If you have any question concerning the class or concerning this video, then just drop your question in the comment section and I'll try as much as possible to respond to you. So see ya in my next video. Love ya. Mwah.